Are you ready, Tom?
Yep.
You're good. You're live already.
Call this meeting to order. I just want to, first day of spring, and I've already taken my egg out and stood it up, and it stands. So.
What does that mean?
You can stand an egg up on the first day of spring, and it'll stand up.
On its end.
Yeah.
Could you get it straight? You want to demonstrate?
I better try, right?
Yeah. Has anybody ever done that before?
I've heard of it.
Yeah. You can stand an egg up today, and it'll stand up straight.
It's the tilt of the earth.
My kid's breaking about
Okay.
8 names.
Okay, yeah. And one last question, do you do that outside or where?
I do it on the table. I'm not going outside. It's cold.
Okay.
You're right. Welcome all. Do you ever have invocation, Louise?
Dear Heavenly Father, please watch over us today and help guide us in our decision-making for our constituents of our community. And please, Lord, help us with some moisture, some rain. We're coming into a dangerous fire season, and we all know we could sure use it. In your name we pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Lopez? Commissioner,
present. Approval of the agenda. Any changes, additions, corrections?
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Commissioner Bowden?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Regular meeting minutes of February the 20th, 2018.
I reviewed them. I didn't see any changes needed. I don't know if you saw anything, but
Yes, I did, on February the 20th. Those are number 2, consideration of minutes, regular meeting minutes. I didn't sustain, I abstained.
Oh. All right, with that change, I'll make a motion to approve.
That was on the regular meeting?
Yes, regular meeting, February 20th. It says, commission allowed to sustain. It should have been abstain.
Make a motion. I make a motion to
I'll
approve.
second.
Commissioner Bowden?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Special meeting minutes, February 23rd.
I sent you an email yesterday evening indicating that the heading had the wrong date, but it's since been correct.
With a With that note, I would approve.
Second?
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lumber.
Yes. Reading correspondence, commissioner committee reports. Mr. Lopez, anything?
I think I'll let you do the fire report if you, because you did not know that I'm not
Okay.
out there, other than,
Well, we did have a fire event out in eastern Los Angeles County, Baca County, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. As you people know, whenever we cross state lines, everything gets convoluted. And it's out, that's a good thing. And now there's probably going to be some fires started over who's going to pay for what. There's my understanding, there's about $900,000 worth of air flight time. And we're disputing some of that. Colorado's disputing that. We didn't get 40% of that, we didn't get near that much. So that's something that's going to take place between the two states. It's a real shame that we can't figure something out to make this thing work where we cross state lines. I mean, the fire doesn't know where the state line is, and we were trying to work with New Mexico, Colorado was, and that thing blew up, and so then we all went on our own. And not unlike every other fire that's been down here on the state line, and nothing seems to go right. So anyway, it's out, that's a good thing. There was nothing destroyed except some grassland and some trees, so it was in very rugged terrain. And that was part of the problem, is that to get to Colorado to fight the fires, you had to go into New Mexico. And this is the same thing, to get to New Mexico, they had to come through Colorado. And it's just, it's mind-boggling amount of red tape that gets involved in it. So, but anyway, as I said, the fire's out. Hopefully that was the last one of the year.
I'd like to add a comment made by the state of Colorado firefighters. I can't remember the captain's name. Joe? Not Joe, what was the boss over there?
Oh,
Phil.
Yeah. And the comment that was made when we were at our first meeting out there was that the area that the fire was moving into, Sheep Pan Canyon and I believe Skull Canyon, on the New Mexico side, some of the roughest terrain on the planet. That's how he described it, to get to the fight the fire. So we do have some, when it gets out east, people just think it's flat, it's not. So, and I was one of those guys that didn't realize how deep those canyons are, so things like that.
So anyway, that's all I've got. Public comment, do we have any public comment?
Commissioner Lopez, you don't have any? Okay. I would like, on behalf of Commissioner Mulcher, to indicate that, he's out today, but he and I met to go over the underground funding, and not only the underground, but DOLA grant.
Underfunded?
And the underfunded. So, you guys, thank you very much. So we made some progress. We're hoping to come to you next week with an RFP that we could then get out to bid for a contract project manager or somebody to work that project. We find ourselves in a position that when we got the underfunded grant, we had requested $160,000, and they came through with $260,000, which is exceedingly unusual. And but given that, and then the $300,000 match that we have, plus the DOLA grant of $315,000, we're in a good position to do the stabilization and try to get that. The very good news that I would like to pass on to you is that given the fact that we had worked with 360 and we paid for $10,000 of design, we were able to secure from Weston and say, what exactly was it that we got for the $10,000? And so we're exceedingly happy. There's a there's drawings and there's specs, and so while I don't have them in my possession immediately, we will be having those, and that will put us on the edge to try to get this done. The downside is that because it's March, it may be that some of these firms are already committed, and we may still be looking in the neighborhood at the back end. But by the same token, we know for sure that we could do the stabilization of the building, and in addition to the stabilization of the building, that as soon as that is getting ready for conclusion, that we would move forward and do the roof. So that is the report. I would like to say that Commissioner Walter bugged me until we sat down and did it. So, that's on his behalf.
Okay, thank you.
And go ahead.
Well, Commissioner Lau, you weren't here at the last meeting that I was here when we said I would come and give a quarterly report. So I'm going to do that.
Can you state your name for the...
Dan Moynihan. We're up around 460 requests for service this morning since January 1st. A couple of things I wanted to report on is there's a nationwide drug shortage, not just of narcotics, for us to be able to treat the pain when we transport these people long distances, but also first-line cardiac drugs. So the things that we use when people are having chest pain or during cardiac arrest, basic things such as epinephrine, which is like adrenaline, there's a massive shortage nationwide. And we've got some drugs that are on back order until the third quarter of 2019. So we are in the process of doing some horse trading with some other agencies that have some surplus of things, and we have a surplus of some things, so we're trying to rob Peter to pay Paul and keep everybody going as long as we can until this is settled. I don't know if you saw in the national news, but there's even a shortage of the plastic bags that the fluids come in. That's kind of a big deal. So we're looking at adapting some of the protocols. I actually went, our medical director and I, who's also a regional medical director, we went to a conference called the Gathering of Eagles in Dallas, and there were 106 presentations over 2 days, and it was basically abstracts where it's the new science in EMS. So we're looking at, people would come in and say, this is what we wanted to look at, this is how we did it, this is how we found. But what we found, they get up, they get down, and so it was like an ADD person's just picnic. You could just, presentation after presentation, there was enough information in there that we're going to make 9 changes to our regional protocols. So it was a very good conference to go to. Some of the things that they talked about, we have already put in motion at the district. We requested grants, state grants, one for what they call a Lucas device, which is an automatic mechanical CPR machine. One of the things they found in the science is every time you interrupt CPR, you decrease somebody's chance of survival. So you're only supposed to do CPR for 2 minutes. So every time you swap a provider, you're interrupting CPR. So this is a device that just keeps it going. It also has a little suction cup on it. So in addition to providing a compression, it also provides a negative pressure, which allows more blood to circulate. So it increases, they're looking at studies that are showing an increase in circulation of 40% using this. So obviously the idea is to keep everything perfused, especially the head, because in the past we were saving a lot of hearts, but people when they were discharged had a lot of neurological problems. So one of the things they've changed also is that we're just going to sit people up when we're performing CPR, and they're getting better blood flow through the head, because when people were laying down, it increased intracranial pressure, so it was harder to get the blood circulating. So these are all things that are cutting edge, that have just come out in science within the last year, and we're already implementing those changes. We requested new portable radios because the ones we have will not be serviceable after 2020. So we're hoping to get those grants for new portable radios. We also requested a child mannequin. We have a Sin Man is what they call it at the district. If you haven't seen it, it will kind of freak you out a little bit because if we turn it on, it just sits there, this thing breathes, and it blinks, and it just kind of freaks me out a little bit. But it has a pulse, it has lung sounds, it has bowel sounds, and it's operated remotely, so you can actually be in another room and hear through the microphone in the mannequin and respond through the speaker that's in it. So it's almost like a patient in and of itself. So we use that, but we wanted to get a child mannequin because in EMS we really don't, obviously at 50 and over is where you start seeing medical issues, chronic medical issues. We don't deal with children enough, but we want to make sure that when we get a child that the providers are comfortable with dealing with children. So we're trying to get this mannequin approved so that when we do a pediatric patient, they've had some hands-on with something that's similar to a child, because vital signs are different, drug medications are different. It's a whole different world when you're dealing with pediatric patients.
May I, when this mannequin is turned on, can you program him to have different illnesses?
But the mannequin is all controlled through a tablet, and so there's the woman that I brought in that's doing education, it was my old partner from back in Florida, she did this, she actually developed scenarios with the Allied Health people in Orlando. She was trying to get everybody in Allied Health to be involved in these things using the mannequin, so they would actually put it in the dental area where they were training dental assistants, and they would have the patient go into cardiac arrest, and then they had their own ambulance, they would respond over there, load the mannequin. So they had everybody involved in these scenarios. So she's very adept at creating scenarios. They do come with a package of scenarios, but still somebody has to be able to operate it. So when they give medications, our mannequin is advanced enough that you can actually, it's got the little RFID chips, and it knows what medication, you can assign medication to it, and it will actually tell you how much medication they pushed in. So you know if the dosages are correct, which is going to be extremely important on a pediatric patient because obviously it doesn't take a whole lot of medication to overdose. They actually found at this conference that up to 60% of pediatric dosages have been incorrect. So that was something that they wanted to focus on. We were already ahead of that in putting in for this grant for the child mannequins.
How many of the CPR machines are you guys able to get outfit for every?
You mean the AEDs?
Yeah.
We have just of the Zoll monitors, I think there's 33 of them. I just had to order 300 batteries because they use those little lithium
So every vehicle will be outfitted with them.
Boss,
What?
I think you meant the Lucas.
No, yeah.
The Lucas.
Oh, the Lucas? Oh, we're getting two of those. One for the 2 first out vehicles. They're $15,000 a piece. So, yeah. Yeah, even in addition to that, we're getting what they call a rescue pod, which is they call it a thoracic impedance device. Because if you just call it a thing that sits on the end of the tube, you can't charge as much for it. So, it actually creates a negative pressure when we're bagging people. It actually creates a negative pressure to pull more blood into the chest. So now they're not just so focused on creating a positive pressure and pushing it out, but also creating a negative pressure to pull more blood in, so it keeps the circulation going. So but 2 of them is what we thought on the 2 first out rigs is predominantly, they handle 95, 99% of the cardiac arrests that we have. So 2 to begin with.
So when you gotta come get me in my house, it's gonna work.
We're hoping. Same with me.
I'm a big guy, you know.
Yeah, me too. But honestly, when we went to the EMS Expo and they had the machine there, we actually put it on me and it fit. So that was one of the reasons we thought it would be a good buy. It fits a great number of people, and if it fits me, it'll fit you. Any other questions?
Oh, thank you for.
All right.
Thank you.
administration report, county administrator report.
We have been very, very busy working on the various grants that we want to get started. And we have another that I found very interesting is that currently the DA is working with Rockland County, and they have this, they call it a gray-black grant for marijuana. And the interesting thing about this is that for every county that, or folks that are having illegal grows, that the state is using some of the marijuana funds, and there's a sizable amount for all of the counties where they will reimburse expenditures that have already been incurred for whatever costs were associated with these illegal grows. So there was some discussion about how they were, what they were, the pricing of it and so on. But what I got was an email from the DA indicating that, okay, this is what they've got at Huerfano County, but at Los Angeles County, where do we stand? And again, I indicated that, well, we had initially discussed that what my hope had been, if you recall, last probably summer, there were a number of FBI agents and opioid people, and not only opioid, but marijuana, and there were a series of meetings wherein there were trainings of our deputies, and there were trainings across at the police station. I had gone to one of the public forums, and all of these FBI people were there, and they were gathering information in public forum. And the result was that with these trainings, but I see and saw no cost associated with that. There had to have been some sort of, gathering. Where do we stand with this? Well, our continued complaint of the county folks is that the illegal grows that get reported, and we hear absolutely nothing. But there are a lot, I'm talking millions of dollars, that are available for receipts to be submitted in a most unusual fashion, and that you never get your cost returned to you, reimbursed to you, prior to submitting for a grant. And so this is what's different. I sent a note to the undersheriff and said that I would like to discuss this, because that grant will not go away. Throughout the various counties, and I heard this morning on Colorado Springs report that they have so many illegal grows there now, and that they are taking the I-70 corridor, and that people in back east want Colorado marijuana for some reason, perhaps because we were one of the first states, but there are people thinking that Colorado marijuana is great, and so they have literally hundreds of illegal grows. And the downside is, the fellow was describing it that someone would go rent a house, say, out in the boondocks, but when they get there, and people are happy, they get to rent it, they are literally gutting the entire house and putting in, and these people are taking what is the equivalent of almost trees. So I think that this is, again, something that, however we do it, that we've got to continue with that education with our department and just really start getting perhaps a report in the same manner that we got a report from the ambulance director here, so that we can avail ourselves of doing fixes like that. And also the fact that we are on the bordering states, like you suggested, Commissioner Loudon, is that we've got Oklahoma, we've got New Mexico, and we have had citizens come into this room and say that they see the U-Hauls going out to these places and loading up. And so we know intuitively that we have them. We need to start responding. And that's just something that I think that when I get the question coming, what are we doing? I wasn't able to respond. So that's a big thing, I think, because it keeps cropping up at us. And and that requires some effort and so on. The other thing that we've done, and you'll see it throughout, we've had some requests of process. And so you will see that through the directors, through the agenda that we have today. So aside from that, we had a very, very good week. And as I said, Commissioner Mulcher bugged me until we got all those files reviewed and done, and we're in a good place for starting these projects. That's it. Oh, and I do have, I had requested that Deputy Bonham come and give a quarterly security report. That too is with our security grant. And we're just, if we would have him come forward and do that for us.
I just want to say something about marijuana, and I'm guessing it's built into the alfalfa. The higher altitude, cooler nights, you get much stronger marijuana than you do at lower levels.
He's like a farmer, you know all these things. Like a farmer.
So maybe not the only research.
It's not only the
Hello, I'm Tracy Bond. I hope you guys have the quarterly report. Christy Coberly came to me at the beginning of February and stated that there were certain aspects of reporting that needed to be done quarterly for the grant. She gave me the report that comes from the state. I took that and added 7 additional categories to that I thought were pertinent to county. Some of those were the number of UPS and FedEx packages that come in, because security scans the smaller packages to make sure that there's nothing in them or anything like that. The total number of courts that we have, how many inmates we bring from court, or bring to court, the number of DOC inmates that come into the building. We have inmates that go in and work in the district court, but we also have at least once a month, DOC brings in inmates to the driver's license to get IDs and stuff like that. And then it also goes through how many people have actually come in through the detector. This includes everybody, employees, 2 or 3 times through, everything like that. When I initially made this report, I went back through for January and just kind of did an average for January to give us a ballpark figure. I was way under what the average should have been. We figured about 300 to 350 had been coming in for the first part of February. As we have gone further along, we found that is actually closer to 500 to 600 per day. So those averages, we could easily add 1,500 to that and be closer to that. From here on, this report will be more accurate as we're doing it daily. The entire month of January was pretty much estimates. Some of the things that we have worked on, this not only gives us a task, it also requires that we put in what we're looking at problem areas, what we've done to rectify those problems, and what our future plans are. So I kind of incorporated that into a report for you, so that you can kind of see where we're at and everything. We've gone through with the metal, or the magnetometer, or the walk-through metal detector. And I did training with Officer Torres, as well as we went through and recalibrated it, which is simply a yearly test that has to be ran administratively. And then we also found out that while it is a great tool to come in to verify whether anybody's coming in, it is not a definitive result. It does not give us, just because somebody walks through there and brings, does not mean they have metal on. This is all based on the humidity, the barometric pressure, the wind that's blowing through there, the temperature for the day. As of yesterday, I actually found out that there's another setting and another calibration that we need to be doing that will, when the weather changes, the wind starts blowing, the machine will actually recalibrate to fit the current temperature for the day. Yesterday, I went through and did 2 of these tests. It takes about 30 seconds for it to restart, and then it's more accurate. But it's forcing us to look at other things. We talk to the people as we come in. We try to get their demeanor, to get them, make eye contact with them, rather than just allowing them to go through and listening for a beep. If they don't want to talk to us, why aren't they wanting to talk to us? It's not because we're being overly friendly. We just want to know how their experience was and how it's going to be. I found a copy of the old policy and procedure manual that was set up by the committee at that time. And from what I understand, this is currently done by the sheriff's office. I'm currently putting that into an electronic format so that we can get that out for revision. There are several things with the addition of new cameras. We actually can see into the courtrooms. And because we can see into a courtroom, and nothing against reporters, but if the judge sequesters the courtroom where reporters are not allowed, reporters theoretically can stand behind us and videotape the courtroom. So what are we going to do in a situation like that? How are we going to hide those or turn them off? Or what are we going to do and still be able to maintain security? I've already found a temporary or a plan for that, and we'll be getting that later. The new camera system is up and running. We're not having any issues with it at this point. Everything seems to be going good on it. As I said, this will be a very accurate report later on. At this time, this is just an estimation up through January. From February on, it is accurate. Some of the things that we'd like to see, or some of the things that we're working on, is currently key control. I've found that numerous keys are still missing in the front door, and whether it's through old employees that they weren't returned from, whatever. But we're still missing some keys, and I've been working with Kim Chavez to have her try and contact them to see if we can get some of those back. She'll be getting a list of those people here shortly. Our computer that we are currently using to make and control the access cards for the employee entrances and at the back and everything. It's an old Windows XP computer. There are no more updates for this. Currently I've got an old computer from the sheriff's office. I'm going to try to have Hayden come over and put this onto that computer so that if something happens with the other one, at least we have a copy of it. At some point we need to see about upgrading it in some way. We're looking at doing the evacuation drills. I talked to Bob Tryman. He would like to see something with fire drills and evacuation drills come about. He has his own plans of where they were to meet. It's completely different from what the policy and procedure that was set up in the initial, where to meet out in the courthouse park. The way Bob has it set up, they go to the police station, or they go down to the post office. So we need to coordinate and get that fine-tuned to where everybody's doing exactly the same thing. One of the things, the most immediate that I can see is we're coming into spring, and I don't know how it's been done in the past. I know this last winter, we had people riding bikes and they were chaining their bikes up to the handicap rails. We told them they could not do that. They were allowed to bring their bikes into the foyer. With spring coming on, because they don't want them stolen, with spring coming on, we're going to have a lot more bicycles. We have stopped them coming in and putting into the foyer. So again, we're getting back to changing the bikes to the handicap rails. That is blocking the entry and exit point from the handicap wheelchair or whatever couldn't get out. Maybe at some point we could look at something, some kind of bike rack someplace that they can tie up their bikes to and not have to worry about bringing them to the front door.
I would like to say that one of the things about this report that I find so interesting is, and particularly for those in the audience and others, is that from January, and like the way he had to extrapolate, but from January through March, 23,478 people came into the courthouse. if you look down, the contraband knife/cutting, 566 knives, and otherwise weaponry, right?
Those are predominantly knives. There is another category called contraband under, which we are classifying as OC, pepper spray, electronic stun devices, batons, self-defense items that are given out really to women, cat's eyes, Coubatons, those kind of things.
And the other, in terms of the courts, because increasingly we're seeing a lot more requests from the courts and we're responding more as a courthouse to the courts. But district court, 404 people, county court, 541, and the transfer of inmates to 203. Now, I have had this discussion with Bob Kryman and also with the undersheriff. We have, Bob Kryman is on our behalf going to be speaking with Judge Appel to see if some of the routine screenings, arraignments, things that they don't really need to be talking to their families and stuff, that we could cut back on the transport. Because what happens with the sheriff department being understaffed, in any case, they have to put deputies in to bring all of these prisoners. And the other aspect is with Department of Corrections. We have been using Department of Corrections for painting and so on. And while that's good, there again, it is an item that we're not necessarily informed of in advance. And then finally, I think that what I would like to see is that in addition to Deputy Bottom putting his items about the computers and scheduled activities for the future, is that we, in short order, are going to be moving DHS, and there is in between the connect the new building to this building, there's that, and what do you call it again? That screen,
Metal detector.
that one.
Magnet.
Thank you. And so that one is going to have to be looked at. I understand that it's in working order, and that's why they're saving it, and it's going to have to get over there. And perhaps that could be something that we could start working on so that when they do come, even though they don't have it currently at Port Wooten spot, that it won't be after the fact and everybody's there and so on. So what I will do is I will contact Arlene or perhaps Mr. Bertolino and ask him to connect with you about what it is they may be doing along with their phone system and their computer needs in advance of their move. But I would like to add it to your report if we could. Is that okay?
On the court that she brought up, that count is accurate, and that is only for the last month. I did not feel any way to go back and make an estimate on how many inmates have come over. So that is an accurate count of how many court hearings and how many inmates have been brought over as of, I believe, this on February 12th.
Well, having 3 firearms, contraband, get caught, that's huge.
Yes, and some of those, you have people come in, they park several blocks away, they come in, they have, one of them did, he had a firearm on him. We were able to, we have gun lockers downstairs, we were able to secure it, and it changed our policy. Usually with an officer that comes in and secures his weapon, he takes the key to go on. We changed it to where we keep the key. That way we don't have to worry about it, we know it's in there, we know it's locked up when we get it, we decide when to get it back.
It's nice to have this in writing too. I think it's our first report since I've been here.
Well, and we're going to, like I said, this will go to Christy. It will be a little modified from this, but it will go to Christy to get her the numbers and she can attach it to the grant. But if you guys want a report every month or every other month, we are more than happy to get it to you.
Tracy, what I would like is, you've indicated that like the inmates to the court were for the last month as a current, but to the extent that you have categories here, when we say January 1 through March 15, to the extent that we have any category of data that is a different timeline, would it be real difficult to say monthly as opposed to the quarterly report? So like the inmates, if they were only, that's 203 of them on a month, the rest of the report is a quarterly report,
Right.
that we would like to so note that, even an
Right.
asterisk or something.
Right, yeah, we can do that.
All right.
Of this 23,476, does that include the 900 inmates?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it does not.
So that's above.
That's just citizens coming in and out
Okay.
through the magnetometer. The magnetometer, we can, every night we go over, we take the count off of it and reset it to 0. So every day we get an accurate count of how many people are coming through. And again, of that 23,000, that's a low estimate because we only did 300 people per day during January.
It's very informative, and I appreciate you doing this.
Well, it's for the grant. Now, it's required by the grant. Of course, the count coming in is not. But that's something that, I felt you guys needed to know, so we put it on the report.
And I'll tell you that in terms of the grants, one of the things that, having done a lot of grants, and I like to say to staff is, come on, let's get the data, let's show off a little bit. Thank you for the money, this is what we're doing with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good job.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Well, I saw you starting to get up. Road and Bridge Supervisor, come on down.
Good morning. We continue to haul waste materials out of the inland and ransom pits to county roads in the eastern part of the county, doing a little bit of shouldering on some of our asphalt roads since it's so dry. And working on county roads and culverts since it's so dry. That's all I got.
Old business. Number A, consideration of conservation easement.
Well, after our last meeting when we tabled this recommendation or request, I was contacted by, I believe, Ms. Amanda Hill, concerned about why our denial or just tabling it. And I'm going to repeat myself, what I said last time, is these conservation easements are kind of as detrimental to the county because it could block businesses and it's only going to help a certain amount of people and it could hurt some of the others if there's any future endeavors want to come in, especially in that area. We've got, you all remember last year when we had power problems in the yard and lack of power getting up and over. Last year people were out for days, weeks. So if we were to push this through or even give it blessing, and I'm going to have to repeat myself and just say deny or table this indefinitely.
Commissioner, I believe that this second request is not so much blessing, it is
So non-opposition.
now they want a non-oppositional filing, which is still, I think it's outrageous that they would request this. I think
It's
that.
still the same thing.
Yes, we will continue. The other aspect of this is that they are using this to go and seek GOCO funds, which are, again, for the recreational use of the people in Los Angeles County, and what they were doing with the GOCO funds would be
Privately owned.
to reduce, private owned land. I think that when, rather than possibly non-opposition say, well, on the contrary, you pushed us enough to say that we have high opposition, and just take the stand.
I really agree. I guess if we have to do something, let's say we acknowledge that we received it. I'm kind of the same way in that, and as you pointed out, Ms. Frazier, this is for recreation. These monies that will go for that will nowhere open up any country for anybody to go recreate.
And even the GoCo people should be aware of this. This is a sleight of hand. Oh, look, we're going to get these conservation easements and protect this property. But you know, I went through and I Googled it and I looked into this group. These people are paid buku bucks, the staff are paid a lot of money out of that easements of what they're getting from the payments. And they are systematically changing the nature of the county to where the land no longer belongs to the people who are providing the easements. And again, in terms of opposition, I think, or non-opposition, that it would be a huge no.
Well, when you take it one step further, these people who get conservation easements get tax credits. So basically the people in Colorado are paying for these because there's money not coming into the coffers, into the general fund of Colorado. So I guess on a philosophical thing, that if the people are paying for it, they should have more rights. They have no rights at all on any of these conservation easements. It's just like still private property, but to say there's some inequities. And perpetuity is forever.
Forever.
With that discussion being said, I'd like to make a motion to table this indefinitely.
Second.
That being said, also, as during discussion, that would be a non-response to the request.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Logan.
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Lopez.
Consideration of E911 board bylaws and IGA.
These items are primarily informational. We had some question with regard to how we appoint to the 911 board. And as a result, what the culmination of all of these, the bylaws, the agreements, there's a draft in process that had been going on that apparently we need another one. But the question is, does the county itself have a say with regard to this E911 appointments? And as you note within the bylaws and items, is that the city, the county have the opportunity to provide appointments. However, it is the E911 authority that is to go out to all of the counties, to all the towns, to the various locations and try to solicit input. So the city has, can go ahead from that input and appoint, as does and can the county. We have 3 such. There is going to be an E911 board meeting, I believe, on Thursday. And I think I would like to go to that meeting and suggest that we look, or that we, the county would say, we don't want to be remiss in our authority and in our order. It's come to our attention that perhaps we're needing a little bit more from them. And then maybe bring this back following whatever we find out, because we have all the documents that say how it should work, but our practice is such that it's
So this would be the first time for me to reach out to this board regarding that
Yes,
plan.
yes,
See
and,
if they've reached out to all the other areas.
yes. Selena informs me that Kim also had reached out to the sheriff and that he was going to do some outreach, but I'd like to just let you know, I would like to attend that meeting and see perhaps that, you know, we want to do what's right, we want to fulfill our requirements, but by the same token, what we have been asked to do is one person had been, and there was some annoyance that you already appointed them, and this is how we got into it, and looking at it, and that we advocate working together in the manner that it was envisioned when it came together. So if you're all right with that, I would recommend that we do that.
Okay. Under that. Okay. Okay. And that's Thursday.
I believe it's Thursday, I have it on my calendar.
New business. Consideration of fairground improvement for 4H1 barn.
Sorry, I have to lower it. Do you guys know Laura Powell, the FFA advisor? What we're here today is...
Oh, you need to both say your names.
Oh, I'm Lori Arnold, County Extension Director. What we're here today is to talk about the improvements that need to be done to the 4-H swine barn. And Marl's going to basically address it, and then I'm going to add in.
Your name again?
Marl Howell. It's M-A-R-A-L.
Howell?
H-O-W-E-L-L.
Thank you.
Middle name?
So, with a collaboration of the Los Angeles County Fair Board and 4-H, along with the other FFA chapters in the county, we would like to show improvements to the hog barn, such as the wash racks that are located within the stalling area, as well as the ramps that lead the hogs to the scales, and just minor improvements to the pens that we house the animals in during events that are held there.
What are you thinking with the ramps? I know they're kind of hard for the animals to get up and down.
Correct. I think if we could improve what type of traction or materials are on the ramps so the hogs aren't getting their hooves and legs hung up, we need to look further into that, maybe such as rubber mats. Other than that, it would mostly be concrete to improve the wash rack areas to make it more of a ramp rather than a really high step. Currently, it's like a 1.5 to 2 foot step that the hogs, they're not built for clearance to get over that. So to prevent injuries for them.
And basically what we're asking for is the okay to go ahead and make those improvements, but we were also wondering if we could use, if the county could supply the supplies needed to make those improvements.
Do you got any cost estimates?
I need to do this. Not at this current time, but we thought once we got approval to do that, we could come up with those and present them to you next time, if that's okay.
You know, I think that's, from my point of view, that's what we got to have. I mean, I think what you're doing is probably needs to be done, but if it's going to cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars,
No. We could, be honest. Actually, I don't know exactly what the cost be too extreme. Usually when you're talking cost of labor, and the labor is going to be basically free because we're all volunteers. So, like I said, I don't know. I wouldn't
and give it to Pete, kind of
Yes.
a close.
Okay.
What I would recommend is that you get that, and then what we'll do is we can sit down with Kenny and or Commissioner, because he's working very closely with the fairgrounds with the lottery funds. We do have some improvement money that we've already got budgeted. So we can work that together.
Having said that, we've saved a lot of money recently putting the electrical lines in the 4-H barn, using the inmates. And also, we have fixed the toilets.
Yay.
So, and
That's a
we
good-
painted, no, we didn't paint the concession stands because it was just needed to be washed off really well, and Chico and the rest of you did a good job on that. But also that sewage line ties in right there by the backside of the wash plant for the hog wash. So maybe there's a drain there that goes straight out, and we have to try to address that as well.
Right.
And make sure that water will be standing, but I think there's going to be plenty of funds since we've saved so much. We should be okay. And the steps you're looking at making, the concrete stuff is not going to be that expensive.
No.
It's going to be probably just Saturday instead of just bringing trucks in,
And basically, it would be great if the inmates could do some of that work, but unless you understand livestock and swine handling, you're not going to understand what needs to be done.
So if you put that together,
Okay.
this is great. This is a good time.
Yeah, hopefully we're early enough, even though it's almost April.
And the show is going to be,
Well, there's a couple events happening out there this summer that involve livestock, but the county fair actually starts July 24th.
so we should have plenty of time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Consideration of district attorney request for space and service.
You have this, but here you don't have the pictures, so you can just process these. Space.
This is in the district attorney's
That
office.
is the DA's office currently. And while you're looking at that, I will just indicate that I put together a memo basically saying that the DA, since he arrived, has been asking for space, and we've been hearing that. And we've had a staff member of his go looking all through the offices. But more recently, given the fact that the DA had indicated that in the event that the public safety improvement sales tax, that he would hold off hiring anyone until the collection started. He has been all over the courthouse, I will indicate, that wanting space. One of the last ones we spoke at the last meeting was that old apartment building, or the old apartment where former maintenance used to be, and that was ruled out because of the ADA compliance. But what I did is I went and I looked at the offices, and I, as you'll note there, that the current administrator is sitting in a break room, and in break room, conference room, in a little corner, that's his office. All of the other people are in very small space, back to back, and the victim advocate is very much has to meet with victims, but the attorneys on the other side very often are displaced when she has to meet confidentially. The long and short of it is, following all of that, and with the pictures that you have before you, he is not exaggerating when he says that they need space. So what you have before you is, in terms of space, is looking at some potential movements within and only on the first floor. I recognize that this might be an interim situation. I also recognize that of the vacancies that we changed this report that had from past, we put vacant and proposed changes. Unfortunately, it would be on the southeast corner where the big impact is going to be noticed by the mobilization or the stabilization that we're going to be doing on these underfunded grants. So, but it's better than nothing, and it is something that in response that we would the admin staff under county general, not second floor, not anybody else, we would be shifted about somewhat to accommodate. So I just thought this gets the ball rolling. You can discuss it as you like.
Did Mr. Salon indicate when his new hires would be started and when?
He did not. I think that he is. There are two attorneys stuck in the. There are 3 attorneys in the space of the victim advocate. Yes, all 3 would be displaced if she has to have. And one of them is a visiting attorney. The ladies up front are just this close. It really is, when you consider, and this is what I did. I looked at the space that Selena and I occupy, and it's a lot of space. I looked at the space that our ER, the HR occupies, and it's 2 huge offices. Then I looked at the space that the CSU extension, and they came with 1-2 people and that humongous space. And what we could do is just basically get the office, the building inspector, the planning guy, and over extension. So those 4 and the veteran would be there, and then the accounting office would remain exactly the same with Christy where she is. I would be in the planning spot right next to me. The whole long big space would be emergency management, HR, that spot. And then the open, and there's still a space for potential growth. That would not interfere with any of the elected officials or anyone else. But it's certainly something I know is cold to you and that you might want to be looking at. Our staff would truly be sort of minimally displaced. We would just flip-flop. It would take a lot in terms of move and vaults and items like that, but it would free up almost, what did I say, about certainly 6 and possibly more, because those offices there would be interspersed. You could open the door, they all connect. Commissioner Mulcher is in that same space. There's another option that he may want to go into the admin office. So, I mean, it's subject to discussion. But it is a look. We're tempting.
Has Mr. Serrano indicated to you, or do you guys have any timeline of when new staff is coming on with his office? That way I can kind of get an idea of what we're looking timeline-wise? Or is he waiting for us to give him space?
Yeah, he was waiting for, my name is Robert Apataka, I work for the DA's office. And he's holding back because he has no place to put him right now, and so he's looking for that space. So it's under my impression that as soon as he can get some more space, that he would be doing the hiring.
That's what I figured. In the short term, I think, in my opinion, because you have some good ideas here, I think we need to talk to maybe Commissioner Walter and Dixie, and those 2 offices could possibly be freed up sooner than later. In my opinion, for the remainder of your ideas, I think it'd have to be a work session of some sort with the rest of the staff and to get opinions and see what needed is space. Now, in hindsight, we're down staff quite a bit from where we were 8-10 years ago. Are we going to be able to get back to that staffing? What's the space going to be needed? I mean, I think those need to be discussed before we just start, because if we are able to do it, bring them back, then we're going to be short of the county space as well. But I think after we talk to Dixie and Mr. Moulter, that maybe that might be a fix that could be something sooner than later. That way they can get started.
And I think along those lines, Commissioner, that was precisely what I wanted to do, is that we move from the talking to potential action.
I guess my biggest concern is in Ms. Noonan's office, there's a lot of confidential stuff there. We've got to find some place to put that. Also in some of the other offices, probably in HR, there's probably confidential files there that we need to make sure that we've got a place that is still confidential or is secured. So I think those are two of the questions that I have right now is how do we move these secured files? Maybe the secured files of Dixie's go into the secured files where HR is. I don't know whether there's room. There's a lot of moving parts.
Understood. And as you recognize these vaults that are inside the offices, there's a very nice vault in the area that, and I know the work of it would be, switching things. I also think, however, that for when the staff was downsized and layoffs and attrition, what happens is that you don't do the kind of house cleaning that is necessary because you don't have the time. And so the archives, and this would afford also an opportunity to do that. It would probably lend itself to some other folks helping, but it's probably timely. I agree with you that at some point we have to look at, while we provide space to the DA, we have to maintain, as Commissioner Loudon says, and you, that we are a county and we have a lot of needs, and while we provide space to the DA, we don't have to give them the whole courthouse either.
Well, what about CSU, and I wish Lori was still here, but maybe they move into where Dixie's office is, give the DA that space. That's a lot of space there where they're at now.
That's a great deal of space, except for, and then Bobby. That's another thought, and that would be, if you would like, we can set up a
Well,
work session.
I think there's some things that we need to do. I mean, maybe that isn't big enough space for them, but maybe with Dean's office, and Dean's not here, so we can move him wherever we want. With those two, maybe CSU can handle that, and then that other becomes.
Yeah. And, but I think that we could, as you suggested, have perhaps a work session to hammer this out, and with staff, because as you know, no one really has been considered. It was to get this process on the road to discussion and movement. Oh, she's back.
I'm back.
Your name just came up.
You're going to be out on the foyer now?
Oh, nice. Do I get carpet?
We're going to have a work session, and probably you need to be part of that, because we're going to be talking about your office, and you need to let us know how much space you need. DA is needing space. We're trying to figure out how to make this all work, so we're going to have a work session, but just so you know.
Okay, we have that work session, please.
Not yet.
Not yet, but I will, all of our staff, of course, will be at the work session. We have DHS next Tuesday, and we will be also scheduling a special meeting at that time for the bid process. Then the Thursday following that, the Dulles people are coming. They want to have lunch with you. That's and then on Monday that week we have contract negotiations.
Tuesday afternoon. I mean, they're wanting to get going on this Tuesday afternoon.
that's fine.
Tuesday after the special
Yes.
meeting. Okay, work session.
Next
So
Tuesday.
the 26th, 27th.
27. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Doctor.
Consideration of Trinidad Area Hospital Association request for easement over Vincent Street and Bonaventure Street to fully access SCOG professional building proposed on sale.
Hello, David Rollins. I have here a survey map that we have recently completed by Terry Surveying. Just lays out what the hospital lease grounds are. It also shows what so this was just completed last fall. The property that SCCOG owns that we're looking to purchase, 328 Bonaventure, is the little triangle on the right side. Can you see that? So the city is not currently recognizing Bonaventure or Benedicta Avenue. So there's some confusion by the city. So Dixie's tried for a month or more to try to get them to recognize it because the title company needs easement to the property. So rather than continue to prolong the purchase of this building, we're asking for an easement from the county lease.
So the upper line road, that's down below, isn't it? Or is that up on, that comes behind it?
So, I'm not here.
Or is this the, no, this is the road that you're talking about here, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of unplotted roads, so there's a lot of roads that don't exist.
Okay.
So this right here is what wraps up and around the campus. Right, this right here does not exist. It's an easement for an alley, as well as this easement for an alley. We'll be working with Terry Surveying to rid ourselves of the easements, water easements, cell phone easements, and so forth, that aren't necessary anymore. And that'll be a future.
Yes, if you could do it,
And that'll be a future issue. But today's issue is basically there's no parking. You know, when they built this building, it was carved out a number of years ago, and so all the parking is on the county lease. And since Benedicta isn't recognized by the city as a road,
And I believe that was
they
checked
have
out
access.
with Phil as well, right? Phil, that's not our road.
First I know about it, I haven't.
Yeah, according to Dixie, it should be a city road.
Yeah, Dixie said it was city, so.
But the city won't recognize it, so the county has to give you these.
Because it's our property, the
Yes,
ground underneath it
yes.
is ours. And I don't see any issues with
And
it.
And then Dixie, of course, has provided the easement language and agreement and recognizing you require this because you're trying to close on the Monday.
Yes, we've been trying to close on this for 2 months.
Okay.
And we've been stuck up on the title descriptions, and then there was apparently small deed work that wasn't signed by the Fabies when they sold it to CCOG. And then finally all got cleared up, so we're actually, the hospital already occupies all 5 suites in the building, so it didn't make any sense for us to continue renting. So that's why we decided to purchase it.
And you're closing on Monday?
That's the plan.
So it would really be helpful if we did something today. How much are you going to pay for that help?
I have an issue with it. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Lauer
Yes.
and Commissioner Lopez.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Rollins.
Okay, consideration, discussion of fire ban relatives to stage 1 status. Kim, you wanna kind of do it, and anybody there that,
I'm not there for,
okay,
unless you need something from me guys.
Morning, sorry, I was talking with Paul. The sheriff was sending out an email to all the fire chiefs to see exactly what they would like to see in a stage 2 fire ban. I did send out a state recommendation on the stage 1 and stage 2 fire bans, which wasn't really, there wasn't much difference in the two of them, but the sheriff did send out an email to all the fire chiefs asking them what they would like to see in a stage 2. Currently, we have a stage 1 fire ban that's still active.
what, I mean, I'm not putting you on the spot, but what are you all thinking? I know you're not here, but,
Who are you directing that to?
to the fire chiefs that are here.
Well, we cannot represent the Fire Chiefs Association. We haven't discussed this in the meeting. That meeting's actually going to happen on the 30th, and I thought we might actually have time to get something from you guys officially from the association. If you want my personal input, I can give you that, and I'm sure Buddy can do the same.
That's what I would like, your personal input, and I know it doesn't hold you to what your boards are gonna do, but.
Okay. So, yeah. Thanks, Gil.
I don't know what's on your mind.
What do you want to talk about too?
Lloyd Holland, Stonewall Fire. So, personal opinion with the fire activity we've had in the district, with some revision on the stage 2 ban, I think it's not a bad idea. You can talk to some of these guys over here dressed in green, but these conditions today, these conditions this year so far, remind me of 2002. Winfred?
Yeah.
And those of you that were here in 2002, that was a great fire season for us that enjoy fighting fire. For those of you that do not enjoy losing property, it was not. So, my 2 cents. I don't think I need to elaborate. If you have questions for me, I'd be more than happy to.
No, I just need your input. I mean, I think we're on the same page, but I'm gonna.
And we have been in the stage 1. You guys put us in the stage 1 since 2002, I think, every year. And we stay in it until you revisit that in the spring period. But it may be time to, and if you look, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, but the large wildfire potential for the year, no, from now through June, is looking pretty incredible for our part of the world and all parts south, east and west of us. New Mexico, Arizona, West Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, and the southern edge of Carbon.
Hey, do it.
Thank you.
Buddy Carroll, Fire Chief for Fisher's Peak Fire Protection District, and Lloyd has said, yeah, we're in agreement to that fire ban being moved. The extreme weather conditions that we're having in southern Colorado, fires that we've been having through the state, I can't see not losing. Any other questions?
I would like to indicate that Commissioner Moulter was concerned a little bit about the effect on business, primarily those that do weldings, and that a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of welding and stuff going on. This would require no open, and we've got all of the information that Kim submitted, but there would be no open barbecues, all of that, and then, but anyone who did do any kind of welding would have to have their fire suppression equipment throughout the county, and there would have to be some kind of extra notices about that, which, again, if we do come back, Mr. Holloman, you indicated what day was it that your fire chiefs are getting all together?
That's the 30th of this month, last Friday.
30th of the month. Last Friday of
So
the
that's
month.
next week, essentially. So if they did all get together, and maybe we could hear from some of the businesses that might be impacted as well. We could, that would be, our very first meeting in April would be the 2nd or 3rd?
And I understand the concerns with commerce for welders in the county and stuff. I have an issue with waiting. We've already had 2 fires in Los Angeles County, so I think we need to make an action sooner than later.
Okay.
We could possibly put some provisions in that, I believe. This is more, you would know better than me, regarding the welding, if they have proper suppression, or even if they called in for a some sort of permit, non-cost permit, just so we know where the projects will be working. That way the fire chiefs would know the districts where the chance of fire could possibly be, or that way they know where.
Let me ask Mr. Pearl, would the fire chiefs be willing to coordinate also with business too when they do have such projects that you could do like a standby or something? Or is that too expensive?
Depends on the personnel that we have available and all at the time. I'm sure we can make some arrangements for that, but, you know, I can't speak for all the fire chiefs until we have our meeting. And
well,
discuss it next.
being proactive will probably help diminish the chance of any mishaps if we were to coordinate something better than the other. But then again, your expenditures would be needed to be looked at and stuff. But even if they just knew where the work's going to be done, if they call into the county, I don't know if that can be done or not.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're working here tomorrow with this project, and that way there's a better look at it.
You're better off, and you guys can hang me if you want to, but you're better off calling where it's happening in the district, because you call the county, they don't know where it's happening. These guys here in the district, if you say I'm on Road 64, they know where that's at.
Oh, yeah, some sort of.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Allen?
If I could add, it will hinder some businesses, and that's not the intent. But just imagine if, by chance, we're in a stage 1 burn ban, and they're out there doing what they do, welding, state line fire. You know, the first word I heard was that rancher was out there welding. You know, 30, 40 mile an hour winds, dry fuels, and every fire we've had in the county, and we've had a few more than 2. We've had 2 in district so far. The first fire we had in district was that Torres fire, which had a lot of potential, and that was January 5th, 6th. So, do you want to lose property, houses, lives, or do you want to stifle business minimally? My 2 cents.
Okay.
Just for me, this is not the Chiefs Association.
It's just my personal, it's like the Fort Carson fire up there. You gotta use some common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Rocking our place. Kim, could you give some input on this and what's your opinion as the union director? I can blame you.
Thanks. I'm not a firefighter, so I really don't have too much input, but I do believe we need some kind of continuation of our fire ban, whether it's a stage 1 or a stage 2. And I would just leave it up to the professionals who do fight the fires to say what exactly should be in there. But I also believe they shouldn't be welding or even doing prescribed burns, and I know that's a touchy subject, but we're too dry and it's hard to fight those fires.
Well, we've had 2 situations in eastern Los Angeles County where somebody wanted to do a controlled burn and they were told no. And then there was another one where an agency wanted to do a controlled burn and they were told no. I think it's up to the fire chiefs, and we need to stand behind them, whatever they say. I mean, this county is so long that, and I know it's not not the case this time, but it could be completely different conditions on one end of the county as opposed to the other.
Correct.
And I think it's really up to those local fire chiefs to be able to say, yeah, it works here, but it may not work in eastern Los Angeles County, or vice versa. I mean, they could get a foot of snow up here that stops at Trinidad, and still dry out that way. It may change things. So that's the one thing that I want to make sure that we don't, as conditions change, that we haven't got something that's too restrictive on somebody or not restrictive enough.
Right, and I think it's great that we get the fire chiefs from all the districts, their input that way, because they are in different terrain.
Well, since we're just a week away from their meeting, is it possible we lift it to a stage 2, consider it until they meet, and then the Fire Chiefs Association maybe possibly put parameters on their thoughts? Just sit up front, boy. You guys all along the back, you're like in church.
I'm kind of a backdoor guy. Realize you can put us in and out of whatever you want. So this week, maybe we're in stage 2, and yes, it causes problems with publications and what have you. And it's gonna cause problems up north with people you're feeding that information to. But if we need to be in a stage 2 for a month, so be it. If we need to go back to a stage 1, put us back to a stage 1. Make it as easy as you can on businesses. I would suggest that. I would like to see that. But also realize that the water that comes into this part of the world, all the water that's supplied by the city of Trinidad and Los Angeles County, 85% of that is the city of Trinidad and our watershed. My district supplies that whole watershed. All that water comes from my district. Now, granted, it also comes from part of their district, when the sand is up there, and they may have something to say. They have their thoughts about a stage 1 or stage 2. So drag those guys in, but make it as best you can for all involved. Okay?
Phil, I know you stood up.
Sit up front.
I know there was mention about welding bans and possibly some restrictions like that, and I realize that it's probably necessary, but just from road maintenance and cattle guards and everything else, maintenance, just make it easy. You always talk about bouncing from one to the other. I have no idea the difference between 1 and 2, and I'm sure 90% of the people that are out there welding cattle guards and fences and everything else have no idea the difference. You just make it simple and make it to where we can continue to work. Because if one of our cattle guards falls apart, folks don't care stage 1, stage 10. They want the cattle guard fixed, and I'm tasked with getting it fixed.
That's a very good point. That's good. We're creating once we may have a safety issue, and if we can't weld, we can't fix that safety issue. Okay. Yeah, I think you had a good point with them come back with some recommendations.
Maybe we can redress this after discussion with Ms. Noonan, get her input as well, because I really hate to make a mistake for our road bridge, for our county businesses. Get a professional opinion from our attorney as well before this. And then if it's within a week, then they meet as well. We can redress this at a special meeting next week. Could I really do something sooner than later?
Well, next week they will not have met by the special meeting, but the April the 2nd or 3rd is our first meeting, and they will have met, and perhaps we could invite them, somebody back to tell us what happened.
Consensus of your fire chiefs meeting?
Or you guys can send a representative. We'd love to see any county commissioner there, or any of these ladies.
And where's your meeting?
Pardon?
Where is it?
Fisher's Peak Station, Starkville, 5:30 on Friday. Friday evening.
Friday the 30th.
If I could add something. So we're talking about inconveniencing, and Phil made a good point. They do a lot of welding, and we have to keep those roads open. but you guys also possess a lot of water tenders. If all you do is park that vehicle there while they're welding, and then you have the suppression. All these guys that are in the field doing welding, they have access to water tenders. It's a little inconvenient to have somebody sitting there, but better safe than sorry. I mean, if we have a fire across there, it's gonna shut everything down anyway. Okay, thanks.
May I ask a question? Mr. Holloman just indicated that we have water tenders, but who has the water tenders? Who has them? Us?
Your
Road
boss,
Bridge?
your boss has it. Yeah, Phil has it.
Phil has them. Your
Well,
boss.
The taxpayers of the county have them, but who
Okay,
wants to use them?
okay.
Have 4 of them, 1 through 3 are broken.
Oh,
We can deal with, it's just a matter of having some type of fire suppression apparatus on the site. We can do it. We do it all the time. We have our fire extinguishers, and some of the guys have rigged up 55-gallon barrels of water that they can keep on the water. That's not an issue. Just a ban or inconvenient, well, it might be inconvenient to some people, but if somebody busts a tire on the caliber, it's going to be horrible. But inconvenience to me and perhaps you guys too.
Third is our next one, second. Regular meeting, second.
and I can go to that meeting on Friday.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
I'll be there as well.
Oh, boy, all of us.
we're gonna gang up on you guys. Comes the county.
Bring it on.
All right, so we can just table this. Make a motion to table.
Commissioner Loudon.
Yes. I seconded it, and
Yes. And Commissioner Lewis.
Yes.
consideration, discussion of U.S. Forest Service on fire preparedness and road maintenance.
Good morning. My name is Paul Crispin. I'm a district ranger representing the U.S. Forest Service. And in that capacity, I'm here to talk about some topics related to the San Isabel Forest that lies within your county on the west end. As you know, you also have national grasslands on the east end of your county, and I have a counterpart that's responsible for that. And so certainly if there are questions that I can answer that you have on that, and I'll sure do that. But primarily what I'm here to do is talk about some issues on my turf on this side of the county. I've also brought with me a couple of my staff to help me keep me straight, first of all. Jeff Wingate is our ranger out of Levita. Hopefully you folks recognize him. He's our man on the ground, gets things done. And John Boucham is my primary staff, responsible for roads and recreation and miscellaneous other things. So I appreciate the time to be able to come and speak with you. And I've got a litany of things, so hopefully I can get through these, but certainly if time is a constraint here, please let me know, and I'll try to keep you short. And I'll start with the last topic that you dealt with here, and that is the issue of fire restrictions. And yes, the fire chief is absolutely correct. The conditions that we're monitoring, the conditions that we're seeing right now are very similar to what we saw in 2002. And that, you know, when you look at fire history, that year was pretty monumental, if you'll recall, with the Hayman fire and several other large fires that kind of set the mark for fire conditions. And we're seeing some very similar conditions right now. And there's a lot of things that you look at, so I won't get into all the techie stuff, but it certainly is concerning to us for all the obvious reasons that it's concerning to you. I would like, however, right, if you don't mind, that I asked what your intent would be in terms of enforcing the county's restriction on the national forest, because as you know, we have developed campgrounds, purgatory, primarily in your county, where we do have developed sites, meaning that we build an area where folks can go fire. And when we're not in the restrictions on the national forest, certainly it creates the question of where a county ban is in effect, how does that apply? What would be your intent, or the sheriff's intent, to enforce it on national forest when in fact we don't have a restriction in place that mimics what you have? So if not today, certainly I would like to have some clarification of that intent. As you mentioned, it's really important for us collectively to be able to be clear with our publics, whether it's the businesses or those that just come to visit the forest in the county and are just going to camp, to be able to communicate what they can and cannot be doing. And it is certainly one of our primary considerations when we look at going into restrictions, and that is how do we communicate it so it's absolutely clear and so that there is no confusion. Certainly going into restrictions, we make very clear, but we don't want to get into a situation where we go in and then 2 weeks later we come out, and then 2 weeks after that we go back in. So once we get to a certain point and we think it's time to go in, we make that decision expecting to be in that restriction for the duration of the dry season. So that's really something. But it would help us if you would help us understand that the county's ban of intention.
Let me put it back on you. Let's say we put it in, you don't think it's right. Who trumps who here?
Well, I don't know. That's a question that has been on our mind for quite some time. I think that's there's some legal interpretation on whether the state or the county has jurisdiction on federal lands or vice versa. And, we're prepared to work with you. We're not about to counter what the county is doing, but we would prefer to maybe have some discussion, maybe reach some middle ground, some understanding. Maybe if there's something that you would want us to be doing on the campgrounds to help mitigate the risk, but still not totally eliminate open burning, we're ready to do that. So, and I'm not avoiding answering directly because legally I just don't know. Somebody in a legal position may have that answer, but I've never heard what that is.
The concern for myself would be the financial side of it. If the fires were, say the restriction was put in place for no open burning and it wasn't followed on federal land, and who was financially responsible if a fire starts on federal land and it comes out of the county? So that we need to have some discussion or dialogue.
What do you got?
Are the fire units you have in the campground up there, I've been up there in a couple of years, are they box units? Or are they just open flame, open pit?
It's kind of what I consider to be typical. It's an enclosed area and it's got a metal frame around it, and it's got a grate, and everything around it is cleared off from vegetation. So
box or something?
Yeah, so it's a metal box basically. And without a restriction on the forest, when we have no restrictions, no stage 1, no stage 2, then our policy is you can have a fire in the campground or you can have a fire in any area as long as you're being safe. And again, recklessness is something that we certainly look for. If you're being reckless, even though we have no ban in place, you're still liable. When we go into a stage 1, our stage 1 calls for allowing fires only in developed site, which means in the campground. You cannot have fires in an area that's dispersed camp. And then stage 2, we restrict fires anywhere. So you cannot have it in a campground, you couldn't have it out in the open. It really isn't no more restrictive. And then stage 3 is an absolute closure of the forest. And I've never gone there, we probably wouldn't consider doing that.
Yes, so we currently have a stage 1, and are you mirroring that currently?
No, we have no restrictions in place. Although I'll tell you that we're revisiting that need on a weekly basis. We, similar to what you folks are discussing and have discussed, we look at several factors, and we try to be as objective as we can. So we're trying to tie it to a measurable, tangible criteria. And as soon as we hit 3 of the 7 that we look at, then, we feel that we've reached trigger points that make it a logical progression. And we're about there. Many of your neighboring counties are there or have been. I expect that potentially the Orfano, Custer, Fremont are going to go into restrictions this week. Some of the northern counties have gone in. So we're all seeing it. Certainly, folks are starting to lock in for all the same reasons. We have similar concerns as what have been expressed with regards to going into a restriction on the county. We begin to limit certain activities, contractors that are operating on the forest. We have active timber sales. We have other things that are commercial that we begin to have an effect on if we go into restrictions. So we're trying to be mindful of that impact on folks that are making a living on the national forest and how that makes it. But that by itself is not a reason not to go into it. So, but we are not under any restriction right now.
On the camping properties, do you guys have camp hosts on those sites when you're up and running?
Yes, we do.
That way they can kind of oversee the, if you got some idiot lighting a bonfire.
And that's certainly the case at all the campgrounds, but certainly at Purgatory we have a host that serve. So I won't take any more time unless you have more questions, but we would like to have some clarification or understanding on how the county might implement that restriction.
Two things. Mr. Holloman would like to come forward and say something. And but the first important thing for me is I didn't get your name.
Paul Crespin, C-R-E-S-P-I-N.
Thank you.
I won't take it. No, go ahead. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Guys, just to touch on U.S. Forest Service and our district, when we go into a burn ban, that has not affected these guys. And quite often, we have signage up at the top of the control path. Jeffrey sees that and he gets a little concerned because it doesn't meet his. But we are signage the same throughout our district, which runs from Cokedale all the way up to the top of the pass. These guys, they wet mow, and they have a camera there. Relationship, but your restrictions will not affect these guys unless these guys decide to accept that. But we in Stonewall, which they're in our district, and we've always considered those guys separate. Okay, so my 2 cents. And I can't tell you about the legal side of it. These 2 guys here.
I don't know what.
I won't interrupt you anymore, I promise. Guys, good to see you, Paul.
Sure. This is Aaron Hendricks. He's our law enforcement officer, and certainly he's the guy who's probably going to be tapping people on the shoulder if there's a violation over the first.
So we basically share responsibility on the national forest with the counties. And essentially that breaks down as we take care of the federal laws and you gentlemen take care of the state laws. Different states give the Forest Service different authorities. Colorado doesn't give us any authority really to enforce state law. We just basically have the same authority that any citizen would. We can detain someone and turn them over to the proper authority at the quickest moment. So when these fire bans are put in place, we will I just basically ask for clarification if it's going to include us or not. You could include us, but we won't have the authority to enforce that. Jeffrey couldn't write tickets for people. We could certainly advise them that the county has a ban and this is what they're asking, but we can't take legal action federally for that.
Unless your ban goes along with ours.
If we would have put a ban in place that mirrors your ban, then we would take federal action on that and write federal.
How often does that happen in the past?
I would suspect that it happens often. It's just usually we're probably later in acting it than you are because we're higher and wetter.
It's pretty common for us to go into stage 1 restrictions. I can't recall the last time we went into stage 2, but once we get through this dry period, or as we get into these dry periods, it's pretty common we're going to go to stage 1. And like I say, we're we're there almost. There's a couple of things we're trying to, we need to get done or achieve, and then we're likely going to institute a statewide restriction on the entire San Ynez, Pipe National Forest, and the 2 grasslands units on the east end. So, I'm sorry.
It throws in another element with tourism funding money coming to our community, you know, camping and outdoor activities, so it affects a lot more than just day-to-day commerce or road bridge.
Yeah, it's pretty far-reaching. The commissioner mentioned prescribed burning on the east end, and again, this I can't tell you, and I won't speak for him today, but certainly if you would like to get more clarification, I can have my counterpart John Lynn come in and talk to you. But the Comanche has had in the works or planning the need to do prescribed burning, but they're monitoring, they're saying the same conditions. They just got, they were involved with the state line fire, is that what it was called? The one that was burning in Oklahoma and then came over. And I think they're getting close to saying we've missed the window, but they certainly have been looking for a window to do some burning. If you've got some thought or you would like to have further clarification, I can sure let him know on what their plans are for that this spring.
Well, one of the things that happened on the state line is that, and I realized, is that your people were there. There was 40 acres sitting out there. They didn't know where it was at. They knew kind of where it was at. Nobody knew where it was at. And we were wanting to set a backfire, and your people wouldn't let us set the backfire because there was 40 acres out there somewhere that was yours.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I'm not sure what the operational strategies were or what the situation was, but again, if you'd like me to alert my counterpart and say you need to come visit the Orphan or the Los Alamos Commissioner, I'm sure we'd be willing to do that.
You know what, I don't think, I mean, that's handled on a local level. I mean, I have my personal thoughts. I mean, when we've got a grass fire going and you guys are sitting over there on your ground, just sitting there watching it, it won't come in hell. That bothers me, because we're all in this together. If it starts on yours and we have to put it out, what's the deal? I mean, there's no cooperation between the Forest Service east of here, and I'm not going to speak for you because I don't know, but there's no cooperation. They're their own entity, and we're not going to do anything to help the private guy out until it gets on us. We're sitting over there with all of our water trucks, everything ready to go, till it gets on the grassland.
I'll certainly communicate that. I'll certainly communicate. I will tell you though, that we do have a formal agreement in place with your county. It's our annual operating plan, and it's a mutual aid agreement, and you're probably familiar with it. But the whole idea there is that we are working together. If a fire is within a mile of that boundary, the national forest boundary, we'll respond. If we're initial attack, or the first ones that are responding, as long as it's within that mutual aid boundary. I would hope, and I'm sure that they've got a similar agreement, but again, I can't answer for why they didn't maybe respond that way, but I'll let John know about that.
Mr. Preston, along the lines of agreements, one of the things that we have provided to the county commissioners is the agreement that you have with Huerfano County that is Mr. Jeffers provided to us, indicating that there's a Huerfano County agreement and that you would, his quote exactly is, attached is a draft of search and rescue between Forest Service and Huerfano County. One of the discussion items on 320 will be Los Alamos County and the Forest Service entering into a similar agreement.
Yes.
Is that something that we need to discuss?
It's on my list, so I want to get down to, if I don't run out of time, it's certainly part of what I want to at least make you aware of, and then see where you go. So let me end the issue of fire by just, if you're not aware, on Thursday of this week, we've invited all the counties that encompass my area, my district, to meet, and we're going to meet in Pueblo. And it's just another pre-season planning discussion. And we do this every year to try to kind of get ready for fire season. And and we do several things, but we have found in the past that it really is helpful. If only for the fact that we get to recognize who we are, and you know who that fire chief is, and you know who our initial attack resources are, and we can clarify the things. We found it's valuable to get together and have that discussion. So we're going to meet on Thursday. We're gonna, it's a whole day. We're going to go through some modeling, have some what we call sandbox exercises, and we're going to model fire. And in going through that, hopefully it's going to raise the things that folks need to be aware of in advance of a fire actually happening. Certainly, if you haven't seen that or weren't aware, I'd invite you to participate if you can. If you haven't heard or don't know if your sheriff is attending or your emergency management folks, but the whole idea is those are the folks we want to have attend. So
I was planning on attending. I don't know about the sheriff.
okay, so that is something that we'll be having this week. Let me see here. I'll kind of move on to some other issues that I wanted to report, and this is certainly, as it is for you publics, roads are a really important thing for our public, as you mentioned, Kendra. And we only have a couple of roads, actually, yeah, just 2 roads in your county that actually are coming off the county and going on to the National Forest. The Apisha Road that takes you to the top of the pass, and the road that takes you into Purgatory. And in the past, we've had a formal agreement with the county, what we call a Schedule A agreement. And that agreement identifies the work, it identifies kind of the standard, but it also identifies the roads that the county can use to claim in order to get gas tax. And that agreement expired some time back, and for whatever reason, we haven't renewed it. And we'd like to ask that you consider maybe formalizing how we maintain those roads or the relationship we have with those roads. Typically what it is we sit down with the county, we agree on what work needs to be done, maintenance work, and the county performs that, they get their credit, their gas credit and gas tax credit, and we are able to maintain those roads. It does not include a special project where it's more intensive. That's where we assume it, or we may contract with the county, have you guys do the work if you're interested, but the agreement only refers to regular annual maintenance. So we would ask if you would consider going back into a formal agreement for those routes. I think total is about almost 10 miles of roads maintenance. And what we'd like you to consider is the concern that we have over the condition of some of those roads. And you may not be aware of this, but a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, there was an incident where the Pishapar Road that goes to the top of the pass was plowed open by what we understand was the county. So it was plowed open, a public, private individual, saw the road was plowed open, they went up to the top of the pass, they somehow got in trouble, and a search and rescue incident was initiated or responded to that. And so it caused us to talk amongst ourselves about, in years like this, where snow is not going to be a limiting factor for human traveling, the idea of putting some kind of a closure device, a gate, is what we're talking about, so that at some point we can close that gate and we won't risk the issue of somebody getting up there, getting in trouble, or the risk of damage occurring on the road when people get stuck or whatever it is. So we will work with whomever it is you want us to work with to discuss that and hopefully find a place to put in a closure gate.
Are you talking about putting it on Forest Service land or somewhere down?
And that's part of what we'd like to discuss. Obviously, we want to find the right pinch point so that people can turn around and back out. There is one location, if you're familiar with that road, there's a location right where the Pishopa trailhead is that seems to be wide enough, but obviously if there's a place below that that is just as suitable and allows us to protect county road, then we certainly would want the county to consider that.
You're talking on top of Kuchara Pass coming.
On a Pishopa Pass or Cordoba Pass, I'm not sure.
But you're talking about regulars.
No. At that point, size.
I think there's a couple of months time ago, in recent past, we had the folks having to do maintenance on one of those tower piers or something up there. And that likely is why it may have been plowed. But could we, Bill, do you have anything on this?
I was going to try to do the Adam.
If I go back to the point of people getting stuck up on top, what I'm familiar with is that two of the parties that got stuck on top came in on the Orville County side because 4-4 didn't have their gate closed, is my understanding. One on our side, and that happened prior to us doing the second line up there, but the administrators correctly, we were asked to get Digicom, the company that works on our repeaters, up to that site. And I tried making it up there with a pickup and made it back out and directed the crew to plow to get Digicom up there to fix that repeater, so Stonewall Fire and the others would have access to rural fire. And I think they got all that taken care of. And if someone went up there after we plowed and got stuck, that's a possibility. But we did close that road and had 2 signs up like we've done every year since my employment with the county. And if people are going to ignore the signs, I can't help that. But he touches upon a point. If there is a location and they'd like to put a gate up, I have no problem with that, as long as we have access to those repeaters.
Yeah, and certainly we would recommend certainly respects the private landowners within the national forest. We call it. So our intent would not to be deny them access, but more to work with them and hopefully reach some agreement on how plowing will occur or things like that. It is something that we would ask the county to consider and let us know who it is we need to work with if you'd be willing to do that. And also, just the issue of plowing, and certainly I can understand. I mean, if there's no way to get up there, except how the road open, that's a need. We have several of these types of sites around the National Forest. Many of the folks that own the towers have chosen to go in with snowcats and snow machines. But we certainly understand that if the right way or the best way to plow open, that's what you got to do. But we certainly would want to work with them so that if something does go bad, and all of a sudden the road starts
Certainly wouldn't get again with the Forest Service. On the maintenance level of the road, how that we structure the maintenance roads. So you see level 3, and that will determine how many times we need to maintain that road. And maintenance level 3 also for the North Fork Road, the Purgatory Road, which thankfully the commissioners rebuilt the county portion of a couple of years ago. Forest Service is also maintained our part of resurface that road too. So level 3 maintenance means the type of maintenance and schedule that we're used to maintain.
And so for me, I guess it's a matter of funding. If we have revenues coming in to support that on our bill.
We can claim that We get about $1,800 a mile, and that includes 2 lanes throughout the county. A little more for mountainous terrain, so my guess is we're probably getting about $2,000 a mile for these roads. And if the Forest Service is okay with what we've done in the past, then I don't have an issue with the agreement. But if they're gonna hold us hard and fast to these different levels of maintenance, then I think it's best that we take a long, hard look at making an agreement, another agreement, because I don't have the staff or the equipment to live up to some of these maintenance levels.
And that was my question, going to be the next question, is that it looks to me like we're maybe having to take care of those roads more than we can, or more than we need to, more than the rest of them. So it scared me a little bit when I look at this.
It scares me a lot. When I look at the past schedule of maintenance based on those levels. We don't do that to our own county roads.
That's right.
There's no way, God's green planet with the staff and the equipment I've got to do that on Forest Service.
And I think for that, there's money to do it, or the workforce to do it.
You know, as an example, we did some graveling on County Road 34-5 back in 2015, and I think we covered about a mile. I want to say that's rest in the county. If we don't have access to that pit, costs skyrocket. Although the Forest Service has been real good about graveling their portions of the road. You know, when I look at culvert cleaning, as I said, we don't do it in our roads. I wish we could. Slopes of like Portable Pass and stuff. To the T on that agreement, you know, we drop what we do and we run out there and take care of that, those roads. Thank you.
This is an opportunity to right-size this agreement. Now, this annual maintenance plan is an attachment that goes on to the Forest Cooperative Agreement. So we work with Phil and the commissioners to decide what is actually capable of being done. We'll right-size this in the new agreement, and then that gives the opportunity to fund the other maintenance items through the funding.
So I'd recommend that maybe you consider having a working meeting to really get into the issues that have been raised, because there's certainly things that we have to think through in terms of how we go forward. So I don't want to take.
I think that could be, we're done with Pete and Phil.
Great. Yeah, we could do that.
I find a common ground where we can all.
You bet. And see how we get through some of these issues, and hopefully reach some point and say, okay, that's what we'll have in these new roads, and how we'll treat those, rather than take any more of the time.
Other than EMS services getting up to those locations, if you're in a rush to get camping, you're doing it for the wrong reason. Take your time.
Yeah. Again, I appreciate your time. I'll jump through a couple more things. And I'll this last thing I'll cover before I allow our law enforcement officer to talk about a couple of things he wanted to bring up relative to law enforcement agreements. And that is the search and rescue agreement that you referred to earlier, that Jeffrey had sent out. And as you know, I would say on an annual basis, the county responds to requests for assistance, search and rescue, whatever that might be. And when it involves the national forest, obviously, we would like to be able to assist or participate, or at least know that some of this activity is occurring. And one reason that's important is that a portion of the national forest is by law, not by desire or anything else, by law is managed as a wilderness area. And as you know, wilderness areas does begin to put restrictions in place relative to motorized and mechanized equipment. So what we have found with other counties where we've had such agreements is that if we can have an agreement that all of us can agree on, then it allows the sheriff to execute his duties and his responsibilities in a manner that is not delayed by having to coordinate with or talk to the Forest Service about, can I fly a helicopter, can I go in with an ATV? So this agreement is designed to try to give the sheriff what that individual would need in order to make an operational decision to respond to a search and rescue type of an incident. Now, the entire forest is not wilderness, but that chunk that is, the Spanish Peaks, does have that statute of law relative to what occurs inside. While we still would have concerns over areas that are not outside that are outside the wilderness, that area certainly is an area that we want to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of how search and rescue occurs. The other thing that we have done with other counties is oftentimes we can assist, not so much with putting people out there on the ground, but certainly with information. Maybe there are things that we can contribute to the search and rescue personnel or the sheriff, but we certainly prefer to do that as well. But the starting point is that search and rescue piece. So if you and your sheriff would consider reviewing that, giving us any input, and then maybe sit down again, sort of a rose discussion, and going through that, see if we can have something in place.
May I ask, how much involvement have you had in CAST with these other agreements with the sheriff?
We haven't had one in place with this county,
I see.
if I'm understanding your question.
Is there a reason for that?
I don't know. Certainly, I mean, it's as much our responsibility as it is the sheriff, I suppose. We have been trying to get, and I have 5 counties that are kind of my turf, so I get spread out a little bit, and we do have agreements with at least 2 other counties. And then for those who don't, it really becomes kind of a, more of a verbal thing. If we can have an agreement and it's practiced and we're aware of what's in there, it really makes it a better working relationship. And again, it expedites the decision-making that has to be made on those, 11th hour sorts of things, middle of the night sorts of decisions that a sheriff has to make on executing what they got to do. But anyway, I'd appreciate any thoughts or the opportunity to kind of get into that with a bit more depth. And I'm going to stop there with what I had, but I'm going to allow Mr. Hendricks to bring up a couple of things relative to law enforcement agreements.
Hi, Gary Hendricks again. I really didn't have something prepared. Paul kind of put me on the spot. I wanted to talk to the sheriff before I talk to you guys, so I'll just make you aware what we kind of see on the horizon. Last year between Fremont, Custer, and Pueblo County, our law enforcement, we pulled 70,000 marijuana plants out of illegal grows in the Florida forest. We arrested 10 people in those grows. We didn't have one in Huerfano this last year, but we did 2 the previous year. So I'm surprised we haven't found those on your side yet. It looks real productive in that area. So I just want to bring your attention. We do have what we have called cooperative law enforcement agreements in the Forest Service, and I would like to talk to your sheriff about that before I go into a whole lot of it. But just to let you know that it allows the sheriff's office to reimburse us for some cost for law enforcement on the national forest. And if in the future the marijuana grows kick up down here, I'm definitely trying to push for that on my side to be able to offer that to your sheriff if he's interested in any way, shape, or form. So if that becomes something on the horizon down here, we have a way of helping you guys out with it.
Question. It allows the sheriff to reimburse you?
Yes. For doing law enforcement on the national forest.
But again, you're federal.
Correct. And it also, what it does is it sets you up as a biller with the National Forest Service. We had a fire down here, and there were costs that were being billed back to the Forest Service. It is a conduit for you to bill us. It makes it simpler on our side if we preset that up on the fire. But as well, it would also allow you to, different counties, again, I'd really like to talk to the sheriff in depth on it, but different counties use it in different ways. Some pay overtime for patrols on the National Forest. I know Jeffrey would be extremely interested in having the deputies roll through purgatory more. I don't know if that's an option just because it's so far up there, and, you know, you use it for overtime just to drive up there and drive through for 10 minutes, but, if there was a real need, they want to see more time spent on the national forest with those agreements. And, but in Lancaster,
Could you say your names?
Aaron, and the last is Hendricks, Henricks.
Okay, and so now, are you,
Yeah, I thought I might be able to reach him today, but in the future, at some point, I would like to talk to him about it. Like I said, I don't have an agreement that I can offer right now. I was trying to get another county one this year where I thought I was on track and they pulled my money. I'm sure you guys go through the same frustrations.
Yeah. But in the event that you do want to discuss agreements, I would ask that you provide copies to us because, of course, the sheriff would likely review it, do everything, but it would be up to this board to be signing any such agreement.
Our agreements do require a signature from the sheriff and the head of the county commission.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
If I can make one more request, would it be okay if Jennifer would follow up with you after the fire chief's meeting? That decision is?
During our stage.
I would suggest after the board meeting.
Okay, after the board meeting.
Okay.
And then also if you reach a decision on the county's intent to enforce on federal land or not, so we can have that understanding clarification. Yeah, so I'll just leave it to him to follow up. Thank you, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Consideration of letters of interest for Veteran Service Officer.
We had a total of, I believe, four individuals showing interest, but only 2 have come forward to submit their applications. And so we have forwarded the information to you at this stage. I think that it would be more than just a scheduling and on who you want to speak to, setting up interviews and that. This is not like other hires in that you do appoint this position.
So what is the timeline on these other 2 that are still contemplating?
They missed the deadline last Friday.
Well, then,
So they spoke with Kim, they got information and then did not follow through, so.
we got 2.
We have 2. Unless there's mail, Kim, that you might want to look
I
at.
checked my mailboxes before I came up and there was nothing in any of my mailboxes.
So we have 2, and the request is that we move forward quickly so that we can get somebody on board to work with the existing service officer. And that's it.
Well, in reading through these, I'm heartened to know that I think either one of these would be good.
Yes.
I was impressed by both.
I'd like to meet with the candidates and also have for Mr. Moulter to meet with them as well before we do an appointment. I think that maybe if we could do this within the next week or so, and also with Mr. Trujillo and get his evaluation and opinion and input.
Well, you have a meeting with the DOLA people, luncheon on Thursday.
Is this Thursday?
Yes. Wait, I'm sorry, next Thursday.
Oh.
Too late. Sorry. My apologies. So,
maybe we can.
Unless you want to plan a special, today's Tuesday.
Well, and also I think Al needed think this person's last day is the 31st or the 30th.
I think it would be good if Dean was here. So next Tuesday, we have a
Special meeting and a work session.
Just do it next Tuesday. I mean, we can just stay.
Let's do it all right. Okay,
Get a hold of the candidates and that way we can
we'll do that.
meet with them.
Okay, very good.
So, any motion for that?
We have to table until next Tuesday.
Motion to table next Tuesday.
Commissioner Bowden?
Yes.
Yes.
Consideration of opioid litigation involvement.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's nice to see you again. Andrew Newcomb and Sam Mitchell from Spites and Warwick Law Firm in Denver. Just wanted to thank you again for your time. We want to let you know we did reach Dixie Noon this morning. We spoke with her for about 20 minutes, and she had a number of questions, I think, that were communicated through you to us, and we feel like it was a really productive meeting, and that we answered most of those questions. So at this point, we want to, I guess, let you ask us any additional questions, even if it's the same information, if we want to go over that, what we discussed, and also simply reiterate the request that we go ahead and have a vote on whether or not the county plans to participate. And I know that you guys are having an executive session this afternoon after the meeting. We're happy to stick around to answer questions as well.
I guess from my point of view, I'd rather do it that way because I would like to speak with her without you to see what she, to see her opinion. So to see what legally what we need to do or don't need to do. So I would like to postpone this till after executive session or till we go.
So you want to table till after executive?
Be able to meet at 12 o'clock. No, that's done. I'm missed that one already.
And I have some questions for her as well, so I'd like to get her response after we talk to you. So that sounds good to me.
So you say postpone or table till after?
Table till after executive session.
Yeah.
And then won't be too long from now. We have one more.
Yes, we have one more.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bills, and it shouldn't be too long. So.
All right, great. Excellent. Thank you.
CDOT presentation on Exit 11 project, HDR engineers. Mr. Behard, how are you doing?
Fantastic, how about you?
Good.
So, timing-wise, we need a couple minutes to set up a projector and a screen. We did that really
We're
more
going to take 5 while
for the
you're getting
audience.
set up.
Do you want that, or since there isn't much audience, you've got hard copies of what was going to be on the screen. I'm just looking for an opinion, should we waste that time?
Well, we would
You
like,
need to see it on the screen, sir.
No, I don't need. We've got extra hard copies.
How about
what about Tom?
Tom?
I'm fine, whatever you guys want to do, so, I mean, we're still live, guys, so I don't want to.
Okay, well, is it important to your viewers to see what, okay,
I think if they want actual documents, they can come request them.
okay.
As long as they know it's being discussed and open, and we're fine.
Okay.
All right, well then we don't need to set up fancy brush projector and everything.
That's okay, that's okay. We, there's one map, right? And so if you do handouts, yeah, at least a map, because that's what we're gonna do with the presentation, is just have a map sitting there that we can stare at.
I believe the commissioners have the map.
Got a few different.
Yeah, we give you a line.
It's larger, it's better on these old lines.
Here you are.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, Rogers, you need to introduce yourself.
Joe Dehart, Colorado Department of Transportation. Thanks for talking with you about the Exit 11 project on I-25. Groups that I've got with me, Cat V. Hill, he got for about 5 years, actually started when he was an intern in college. Has since graduated, passed his engineering intern test, is about a year from taking the PE test. Excited to watch him over the last couple of years, and all the projects that he's been involved with. We were brainstorming that the other day. 350 overlays, critical culvert projects, I-25 that's about to start, 80 walks that happen down on Main Street. So in a short period of time, he's been involved in a lot down here. So Patrick is Jeremy's right-hand man as far as design and project management of this. The design and the special design expertise that we're missing in-house. So his 20 years of experience is really more about like innovative intersection designs. Roundabout just being one of those. Highway up in Glenwood Springs, Edwards and I-70, Arapahoe and Parker in Denver, exit 240 in Idaho Springs. So again, a lot of those interchanges are real similar to exit 11. So exit 11 has some unique things about it, but this same concept of putting a couple of roundabouts at the intersections up on top or down below, we've done a lot all over the place, and he's been involved with quite a few. The other thing that Jeremy brings is relationship. FHWA is a huge stakeholder, right, in all of our transportation projects, and making sure that they're on board with the scope, and especially since this is an interstate, really how we're changing how that facility works and making sure they're on board with it. Hillary is the name of the lady who is their roundabout expert. National exposure, even global exposure. Australia, Great Britain, all kinds of places that have done roundabouts. So she's been involved with this project since day one. We asked her to, just to make sure that we were heading this thing in the right direction. So that's the team that I brought with me to answer questions and stuff at the end. So let me jump into the project. Other than I am a resident engineer for CDOT, that's a fancy word for saying that Los Angeles and Huerfano counties are my geographic area. And so any projects that are happening there, it's my team that does the design and the construction of those. So the project, we started this project talking about it at the TPR, at the Transportation Planning Region meetings, where Los Angeles County has a representation on that, right? So that's a consortium of a lot of people talking about the transportation needs of Los Angeles and Huerfano counties. So the Exit 11 project was, started with confusion like, man, there's a lot of near misses, not a lot of accident data, but there's some accidents. People are going slow, there's confusion, there's just too much space and people don't know where to go and be. Part of the problem is with the frontage roads being so close to the on and off ramps, physically, there's a lot of things going on. That's where the project started. The TPR said, CDOT, let's see what we can do about that. Even so much so that they said it is a priority as far as projects in the area. We're even willing to stip and allocate dollars towards this project. We started off with an alternatives analysis, and what we wanted to look at was, a lot of people talked about the beginning, but you don't want to come to that conclusion without looking at other stuff. This alternatives analysis has been out for quite a while. We've been working on this project for, 2 years. The story interchange types actually, and said, well, is the diamond interchange there now the right thing? Yeah, the answer was. It wasn't needing to go to a different interchange type. So then, well, what do we do with the intersection? Looked at a bunch of intersection improvements that we might make. Roundabouts end up being the preferred alternative out of that. We looked at quite a few different things. Even signalized, everybody thinks signalized automatically. And what we found was that a signal is a short-term solution. If you got heavy traffic during that 8 o'clock time or that 5 o'clock time, signal works great, but it's not a 24-hour solution. All the rest of the time, you've got people waiting unnecessarily at a light because of the timing, because of a bigger volume of traffic. Even with 20 years worth of growth, the traffic signal still wouldn't be warranted. There's certain criteria by law that signals have to meet before you can install one. So even though we analyzed it as a solution, even with 20 years worth of growth, we still couldn't implement it, even if we said that's the best way to go. So got done with that and presented back to the TPR, and they said, great, right? Things are looking pretty good. And it was the city that started to make comments and stuff about construction of the project and what did that mean for the business owners and the traveling public. Great set of comments, because it spurred us into a initial look at what construction phasing was, and we put something out, and it was rudimentary. They called it circuitous, and it was really messy looking, and it was true. They said what we really need is to take a step back, let's do a constructability review where we're bringing in more experts. We brought in contractors, we brought in designers and construction staff from CDOT, from the consultant world, really good group of people that looked at that, and we talked that we need construction phasing better, the paths that the people go through when construction is happening better. And if we need to change the design to do that, we've got the freedom to do that. And out of that really came some great ideas. So we've got a much different design now that we're moving forward with that does constructability a lot better. It's still the second step. If we get to the construction phasing can become better. But I'll talk in a little bit more detail here in a second. What we're trying to do is educate at the moment. We're not asking for any decisions. We're educating at the moment, because as this thing starts to become more prevalent in the meetings that we're going to go do, your constituents are going to ask you questions. And so we're here just to make sure that you've got the background knowledge, the things that we're moving forward with, the problems we're trying to solve, that you're educated and informed when your constituents ask. So what is the problem? It fixes the problems that are out there now, right? The near misses, that kind of stuff. A transportation project doesn't necessarily making development. Those are extra intangibles that you can add layers to the onion, right? So what kind of development opportunities come once this project? New interchange and completed. It was really weeks ahead before this bridge, this new bridge opened, and there was a dozen new businesses that were ready to start to ground, and they were just waiting for that interchange to come in. One might construe that you could see some development in this area once these improvements are done. Same thing with like this concept of a gateway and the aesthetics. This is our front door from everybody coming from New Mexico. Doesn't look bad now, but look how much better it could look and how much better it can function at the end of this project. So we did that constructability review, and we feel like we've got a much better design, a much better construction phasing idea. And so we said there's a group of people that we want to go talk to. We said that the motor carrier group was an important stakeholder, especially with the port of entry there. Port of entry themselves. We said we want to make sure that all the elected officials, and so that's our meeting today. We're going to meet with City Council this evening. We're going to spend time with the business owners in that particular area just to talk about the project. We're not going to be able to make the delay because of construction zero. Make it and better answers that we've gotten in some of the construction. But we want to make it back to TPR to give updates on the feedback that we've been given through those meetings. And ultimately, we promised we'd have an open house, a public open house. And again, educating people about the project, getting feedback from them. And what we want in the end is to give the feedback back to the TPR, let it be amongst its members. And we'll take a vote at that time and say, how does this go? What does it look like? And let the TPR decide whether we move forward with design, construction, or don't do anything. What our path is moving forward.
Before you go,
so because again, we don't have much design. Estimate cost now. What we planned in the tip was 3.5. We said that the that becomes a part of this, we were looking for like $1 million or $1 million. We've got 6. Definitely a funding gap that we have to solve. Does that have to be figured out before we say go forward with design? Hopefully not, because design will help us bring either that cost higher or lower and get more refined as we go along, but we definitely have a funding gap to solve through the TPR before this can go to construction. That was the 5 minutes I wanted to do in a quick overview, and leave the rest for question and answers. And let me know, let me go over the last couple of pages, those white ones. We see 4 construction phases, and the text might be too small, apologize. What we wanted to differentiate in those is the time that those pictures represent. Because you look at one particular picture and it looks really messy, right? So the very first page, phase 1, we're claiming that's 1 to 2 months. That is a little bit of temporary work to make room to push people out into areas that they're not using today. The second phase is where we're doing the majority of the work. That's the new bridge. That's the majority of the roundabouts. While that's happening, people are still using the footprint that they're using today, so we're not changing traffic patterns too bad. That's maybe 8, 9, 10 months, we're guessing at the moment. Then, the next page, or the third phase, would be some of that tie-in stuff. That's where you see people going through the most circuitous part of construction phasing, taking some routes that they're not used to. We're claiming that really needs to only be a month, maybe 2 months. So we're talking about not making the delay or the pain zero, but we're saying the pain that you're going to experience is as small as possible. And then the very last phase is really just tie up and clean up things where everybody's actually using all of the new footprint of the new construction as we're working on the periphery. And that, I promise, is the end of the speech. Open it up for questions.
The construction of the bridge itself, I'm sure you have to go through design and all that first, but do you anticipate possibly utilizing the new technology that you just saw collapse in Florida?
I don't
go there, but
sure, no, I don't. Bridge failures and stuff going on. Extra eyes or extra set of scrutiny that they're doing on all deals around. I don't want to speculate what did happen up there. Sounded like it was a brand new bridge that wasn't there very long. I don't know what the status was. A week, right?
My next question to you is, how is this going to affect our emergency services, firefighters, building? We have a firehouse up there in Starkville, getting to and from across if they need to get that way. With the traffic flow, I see it here, it shows that you guys are going to leave that remainder until the rest of that, then tear that out.
Right. The paths that you're using today will be in place for the 9 months where we're building the new bridge, building the majority of the roundabouts. There'll be a month time where it's a little bit of blend, where we may be sending you out on perimeters a little bit. But during construction, we'll always have paths open. Every access will remain open. Every road, every lane that's open now will have some way to still make it from point A to point B. They just may take a little bit different route than what they're doing today. And we're saying that time, we're trying to make as small as possible to make that delay as small as possible. Can't make it zero, but as small as possible.
And then you'll take down the old bridge once this is...
Right. That would kind of be in that third sheet. Once everybody's on the bridge and in the roundabouts, then the old bridge would come down. A little bit of work in and around infill kind of thing. The bridges, the construction techniques that we've got and that we'll deploy down there are the bridge that we would build here would be a better structure than that pedestrian one. We've got a great track record. There's safety protocols and design. Safety is a factor and all kinds of things built into the process that I can't guarantee zero, but right, we've got a good track record of not having structures come down.
It appears that you're not going to have to actually buy any property. Existing I-25 federal, is that plain to me, or are you going to buy to the
East and west looks to be places where we'd be in a right-of-way acquisitions to try to take, since it's going to kind of become wider. Don't quite have that identified yet. Even this design brought that need in quite a bit, but I don't think it's going to be zero. I think we're going to be into the gas station, into the hotel and the cannabis business that's there, changing that access a bit. We're definitely be on the other side where the hotel is on the other side. So we know there's right-of-way acquisition coming.
Joe, is this kind of looks like that exit 104 on I-25 in Ludlow?
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of like,
Yes.
do you know what I mean?
Yes, very much so, yes.
That is a really cool roundabout.
Thank you, I think so too. That could be some of your comments from constituents as we move this going forward, is that there's still a big part of the community that is anti-roundabout. And what's interesting is the communities that we have taken roundabouts into, you'll find later on that it's like, it really does work pretty good, but it takes that initial. We don't know if that's going to be such a big deal here, especially with the one that happened downtown. At least we're not breaking the ice with this exit 11, so the people are at least used to having one in their community. We'll wait and see what the public feedback is.
The one downtown is the whole TBR worked for months and months and months. And then the roundabout happened with the city. And we had no knowledge of it, remember that, Matt? And so that was kind of crazy. And so when the city came after the TBR had done this exit 11 and they had talked and talked and talked, city comes in at the 11th hour and said we don't like it. So there again, we're not at the TBR meetings. So it's just this craziness. But this one, I think that now the city is on board.
And I guess that was one of the questions, is this, would you present this to the city? And
This evening, we're doing the same kind of educational presentation to them. And I know that we've had some city council members at TPR, but I think this is going to be new for the majority of them. So it'll be interesting to see what the feedback is this evening.
And if I may, actually, in the constructability review meeting, Greg's son was part of that constructability review as well, which brought some of these design changes too, so.
Would this be a two-lane, or?
Single lane.
Single lane?
Yep.
Okay. And then for the oversight?
The shading that you see is a road that would end up going through the roundabout kind of backwards. And that really is more for the really long trucks. The wind turbine blades, some of the trucks that are carrying logs and things. How we would post it, what we're thinking at the moment is 80 feet would take that bypass road. Got the truck movements through roundabouts. A WB67 is a typical interstate, full-length, long interstate truck, and they can go through the roundabout through bypass route. But that's one reason we're meeting with the motor carriers and with Port of Entry, and we know that they're a much more significant stakeholder than any other roundabout.
And one last question. I know you're going to meet with the vendors and the retailers, but I think you're going to have a little bit of opposition, because that's a sales tax base for the community, which we're now a part of. Thank God. But the assurance would be to them that you're not going to be closing that down until you're complete.
Right. Every access that's open today, it remains open. Every path that somebody takes to come to or away from this set of intersections still remain open. It's while you're in the intersections, there could be times when we're sending you on a little different route than the path you're using today, and as short as possible.
Because after tonight, we'll do presentations.
Pandora's box, knowing that we're leading to that public meeting, but as soon as we start to do the feedback's going to start to come.
Has been doing this for years, literally looking at this exchange here.
Yes.
What's the lifespan left of that original bridge?
The rating of it really isn't too bad, a 0 to 100 scale. At 50, we start to say it needs to be replaced. I think it's in 60s someplace, so it's not a spring chicken, but it's not ready to be replaced
In
either.
the next 10 years, if we don't do this, it's probably gonna.
Or it can go through some sort of rehabilitation to give it a little bit longer life, not necessarily a remove and replace. This project brings an opportunity to remove and replace it. When we were talking with those people that would give us that money, if we don't do anything with a new bridge, to get pedestrians better crossing across there, we said we've got to widen the bridge. And you may have to how the roundabouts interact. So he said, why throw good money at that? Why attach this new stuff? So their recommendation to us was replace it. Don't just rehab it or add this new scab to it. And so we're moving forward with that, and it really helps the design a lot to be able to relocate it.
When is the next TPR meeting?
Next,
In a week?
Thursday, I believe, this week.
This week?
I think it's Thursday of this week in Walsenburg. Maybe not Walsenburg.
I'm not sure where it's at. I have a call meeting right after, so.
Yeah. So yeah, we were kind of excited to have these two presentations done so we could come talk to the TPR about motor carrier group and these two and give an update on our progress in these outreach meetings that we had planned, promised to do. Yeah, I've got it as, I've got driving to Walsenburg, so I think we're this Thursday in Walsenburg.
What about doing the old bridge, make it a bicycle path, a pedestrian path? Or you're gonna have to tear it down?
We certainly could look at something like that as we're getting into design. Hasn't been a scope consideration up until this point. If you're gonna build a new bridge, it's not that much more to build the pedestrian part into it and be able to maintain one bridge forever instead of two. Could be some of those pros and cons that we talk about with those decisions.
What time is that TPR meeting? Because I know that the commissioners are, have a thing with Dawn at lunch.
That's following.
Oh, wait, I keep doing that. Sorry.
I got my calendar for 10 to 12 in Walsenburg. Hopefully yours shows the same.
I'm always really up at 9:30.
Okay.
How will you get started? Let's go.
We're working hard to get to that point, and it was the feedback and the stakeholder groups that we were told to go out and engage more. And hopefully we get positiveness from that, and the TPR gives us a thumbs up to proceed.
Just for the record, I was rear-ended in this when they built down here, when they first built it. But I'm not against it. It was new. People in the community did not use it yet.
If you got a new car, or you gotta get called.
I got insurance. I gotta call these guys around here.
No, I think this is a really good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Did it hit the spots that you wanted? Can you give me any advice for city council? Should I cover something that I didn't, that you're curious about?
Good luck.
I would suggest that you indicate that this has gone to TPR since, geez, it must have been 2000 and...
A long time.
I figure if I said 2 years, that's not a lot, right? So at least we
It's even longer than 2 years. It's got to be at
I
least
remember
more.
about 4 years.
Maybe it's 5, 6. Because that's when we started talking about it, making money for it, and all the plans of it.
The frontage road discussion that came into play for a while wasn't, not gonna bring that up into the conversation. We're back to trying to figure out what to do with Exit 11, so. Good, all right, well, no, do appreciate your time. Thanks for letting us do it, and I'm sorry if you know it already. I knew we'd have at least one person that was, maybe didn't have all the history, so. Look for us at that public meeting. We don't know exactly when or where yet, and again, if your constituents are asking you questions, hopefully you feel more educated and can answer them.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Careful. Busy highway.
Yeah.
Consideration of bills and payroll for the first half of March 2018.
Yes, Christie is out today, and so looking at $151,000 151, 542, 35. There are a couple of notes that she has that she generally will speak to. I think there was one.
Yeah, they're highlighted. They're highlighted for some more, for the sheriff's department, for the transportation. And they have the numbers for the annual one as well, so.
Yes. She's gearing up for audit. I would like to tell you that I think you may have this information. The amount of money that was collected in March for the sales tax was $220,000 for January. And so she met with the Luann Pilot with the Department of Revenue, and oddly enough, that data is so highly confidential that she had to sign an agreement not to be, going through and identifying anything, but it does show where, and I think we provided that to you, the amounts of money coming in. The marijuana alone was $44,000, I believe. And then retail food, like restaurants. So it's really interesting, and I discussed with Christy about all that to the extent that we may have to go back to the voters to keep any excess of that money, we have started a 3 filing system. One for the 1A would be the amount of money for public safety, how much we got, how much we anticipate month by month for excess, so that by September, when it rolls around, we'll have a very clear idea of how much money we're looking at. We also started budget files to indicate where we think that we may be going over budget, so that we can delineate exactly where it is that the money could possibly be used for. And most importantly, public safety and fire suppression, any of those contingencies that we might need. So we're anticipating what the questions are about how to be able to do it.
Yeah, I think she's pretty Johnny on the spot with her. Do we have any issues other than to move forward or table it?
I think
I think these
we
are
pay
good.
the bills.
And she's getting ready for audit, and so tightening up and cleaning things through this, what we refer to as 13th month.
I make a motion to pay the bills. Second.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Loudon.
Yes.
Trying to break in down
No?
there? Trying to break in?
Acting in his capacity as a Board of Human Services, consideration of bills for first half of March 2018.
Attached are little copies of living sheets of what they are, and you've seen those.
What?
The bills for DHS.
I have not reviewed those downstairs. Where have you?
Okay.
So this is the financial report for us or DHS?
This last is the DHS. Oh, that's where I had it.
Oh, the informational.
Yeah, information. Christie's not here, so any questions we have, just make her do it next time. Make a motion to table DHS bills until review.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Yes. Executive session, the board will be in executive session under CRS 24-6-4224B, conferring with the county attorney for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions and CRS 24-604024F, personnel matters not involving any specific employees who have requested decisions in the matter in open session. Any member of this body or an elected official or personnel policies that do not require discussion of matters personal to particular employees, the CRS 24-6-424C, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations.
Motion.
Second.
Guys, are you gonna come out and vote after lunch, or do you want me to wait? What do you want to do?
It's, you can do whatever you want.
You are gonna vote?
We probably will on this opioid thing.
I think I should capture it. Are you guys gonna take a lunch break and come back at 1, or are you gonna just do
I
it?
don't know, it's up to,
Just do it?
we're just gonna do it.
I'll wait. Guys, if you can, I'm waiting for somebody to come get something. If I gotta leave, I'll be back in minutes.
Okay.
So, but I'll sit here and wait.
So we've got a couple of things that may take some time, so we may go ahead and do this opioid thing first,
And then go back in.
and then come back out, and then go back in.
Well, my head's spinning. That's right. I'll just wait. If I'm gone, give me a minute. I'll be back. I've just got to hand something to somebody.
Go ahead and discuss that. And I'll